Welcome to NextGear's Track Series. Now today, we are at Autobahn Country Club's South Track in Joliet, Illinois for the second time this season. Now the first time was just a month ago when I took the 335 to the track for its first time. Now on that occasion, I spent most of the first half of the day with laps in the 1 minute 55 second range while I learned the track and got used to the car. But in the last half of the day, I was able to get my normal laps down to the 1 minute 52 second range and had a best lap that day of just under 1 minute and 51 seconds. Now my goal for today's run was to see if I could beat that with the S2000, which has only a fraction of the horsepower, no traction control, and a manual transmission instead of those paddle shifters on the BMW. Now I recently upgraded the pads and rotors to new stop-tep components, and the tires are new Bridgestone Potenza RE71 RSs. Now otherwise, the S2000 has the same mods on it has for the last 20 years, which include an AEM intake, 477 gears, and a VAFC to lean out the fuel mixture for some extra horsepower and to lower the VTEC de-engagement and re-engagement points. I also have 17-inch OZ Superleggera wheels, which are about 2 pounds lighter than stock per wheel. Now today, I'm with RevMatch Track Days in the intermediate group, and I'll have 5 sessions. Now what you're seeing now is the best lap of the first of those sessions where I was getting used to the gearing for each of the corners. Now in this first session, I was in third for all of the corners except for corner 7, and third gear proved to be too slow for several of these corners, specifically 4, 5, and 6, which seemed like it could be taken at much higher speed if I kept it in fourth and kind of carried that speed to the corner. I was also hitting the very top of fourth gear and the rev limiter at about 100 miles per hour on the main back straight, about 100 to 120 feet before my main braking point. So it's going to make that switch to fifth a very short one and maybe not worth it. So working through those gearing issues in my next 4 sessions, as well as trying to optimize my time around the corners, is where I'll be focusing for the rest of the day. Now there we are at the end of our first hot lap, and it looks like the S2000 is getting roughly the same times as the 335 did during its sighting laps. So let's see how much time we can chop off that in our next session. I'm just going to be quiet on this one so you can enjoy the sounds of the car. Enjoy the hot lap. So I was hoping to get under the 151 mark today, but I had no idea I would get there so fast. That final lap that you just saw of session 2 was a blistering lap, and I wasn't even pushing that hard. I really was just trying to carry as much speed as I could into the middle corners of that track. Now I felt there was a lot of room for improvement here, specifically my slow down shifts in 8 and 11, and I slowed down too much going into 11, and at the end I definitely felt there was some time to be gained by increasing my braking points just a bit more. However, the next 2 sessions of the day, I was in the 150s and unable to break into those 40s again despite me driving the car quite a bit harder. Definitely goes to show that you can overdrive the car. Now next year when I go back to this track and when I'm on the full track at Autobahn next week, I really need to focus more on carrying more speed through turns 5, 6, 8, and 11, as well as my downshifts in 8 and 11. Now the S2000 was definitely much more stable today than on its previous track runs, with its upgraded tires, and the brake fade was far reduced compared to previous events. Now despite its lack of traction control and its manual transmission, I also somehow ended up being more consistent in the S2000 than I was in the 335i, with all of my fast lap times being within 2 seconds of each other and largely within a second of each other. Now right now, you're watching my last 2 laps of the day that were just under that 150 mark. I'll then show my fastest S2000 run compared to the fastest 335 run to get an idea of where the time and speed differences were there, and at the end I'll go ahead and show a few close calls and off-track excursions from the day. Enjoy the rest of the runs. So this event right here happened actually on the out lap of the second session. And it looks like this guy ended up going a little bit too fast on cold tires, and it ended up spinning him off the track. So good thing to keep in mind to get those tires warmed up before you start getting into it too heavy. Now, when looking back through the videos, I noticed that this panel actually came loose before I even entered the grounds, and I hadn't noticed it. So during actually my second run, it ended up coming loose and almost flying out the window. So I ended up dealing with that mid-run and then securing it after the run like it's supposed to be. Now, the final mishap of the day was when the camera mount failed as I was heading onto the track for Session 3. Now, due to this, there were no overlays for Session 3, but thankfully I still had 3 other cameras working and 3 GPS units in the car to track the run's progress. Definitely, we'll have to come up with a better solution for the full course in a week's time. I'll be sure to post my runs next week after I'm done with that event. We'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks for watching.